This is going to be Barb and Perhaps riding the World Dressage Federation Foundation Level 1 Test 1. A. Enter at the working walk. Proceed down center line to X without halting. X to H. Continue working walk along diagonal. H to C. Continue working walk to C. After C, turn right on quarter line. Leg yield left to the rail between B and P. P, circle right 20 meters. P through K, continue to K. KXM, change rein, lengthening the horse's stride and allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward. M to C, develop working walk. Pass C and turn left onto quarter line. Leg yield right to the rail between E and V. V, circle left 20 meters. V to A, continue to A to C, 3-loop serpentine. HXF, change rein, lengthening the horse's stride and allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward. F to A, develop working walk. K to X, proceed along diagonal to X. X, turn down center line. X to G, between X and G, halt, salute. Dismount, stand quietly for a moment. You may reward your horse. Take the reins over the horse's head and leave the arena, leading the horse at its shoulder. So thanks to Barb and Perhaps for being our first guinea pigs working our way through that test. I thought she did a great job. She had only just seen this test, so she did a great job of winging her way through it, and we'll tape it in a few more days and see some improvements. So now I'm going to talk you through the test here now and just talk about a few pointers about the test and talk about scoring a bit. So I've revamped the scoring system for dressage. It's still a 10-point per movement system, but the system's broken down a little different. It's very simple. It's like this. In order to get your total 10 points for any individual movement, it's broken down in 4 parts. The first point that you must get, which is whether or not the horse is over its back or not. Then you get a 1. You get a 1 point for that. And then everything is broken down in 3 other pieces, which is rhythm. You have a possible score of 3 there. Relaxation, possible score of 3. And accuracy, possible score of C. For each movement, which gives us an easy way of thinking about it. So when we see a horse that's working well over its back the way this one is, then we have that first point in our mind. So we go from there. So any inaccuracies that we see from there or losses of rhythm or relaxation are going to be noted within that. In other words, if it gets a 3, that means it's pretty perfect. The horse stayed in very good rhythm and stayed in pretty perfect rhythm and relaxation throughout the movement. And then, of course, if you've got a 3 on the movement itself in terms of accuracy to how the movement is performed, then that would make up a score of 10. So that's the idea, and that's possible for each one of the movements as we go along. So we can see here that she's been quite good in terms of rhythm. She has a little trouble here. Once in a while, she overpressurizes her a little bit, and she gets a little bit of a jiggy walk. And, of course, that would be counted down. But she keeps the horse quite nicely bent here. The horse is very soft through the jaw and poll. And there she gets into a really good frame once in a while where she gets absolutely perfect. But still a little up and down at times. We can see right there like she lost her back just a moment and got a little bit too high in the head, and that kind of stopped the swing of her shoulders. So we're looking for that to stay over the back. So once again, that would have been counted down as a rhythm problem there in terms of, in other words, it couldn't have scored a 3 on the rhythm because it wasn't a perfect rhythm. There was a bit of change in the rhythm. But that's a good working walk, what we see coming through there. The horse is coming nicely up forward to the bridle, soft at the jaw and poll, very open in the neck. And here the stretch, she stretches right down into a really nice long stretch, so that's all quite good. That's a little variance of where she's going right there. Remember, I'm actually talking Barb through this today, so she's done a wonderful job of following my voice and being able to do everything I'm asking her to do. So she got into a good stretch there, and now she will develop the working walk again after M, preparing for the next exercise, which will be the next one of the leg yields. So I try to divide these tests in a way that it mimics how we train, how we always come back to the stretch, how we always keep opening and closing the frame of the horse, not locking it in all the time. those movements that help us. Now on this particular exercise, she should have come a little more forward, so that we can see that that leg yield was not as good as the first one. She didn't step as deep under the body, so that would have been counted down a little bit. And she didn't end up beyond E, so in that particular exercise, she should have ended beyond the letter E, which would show us that she'd had enough forward movement. But because the lateral movement was a little bit short stepping there in that particular one, and you can see here now she's struggling a little bit to maintain the rhythm. These tests, while being fairly simple in what we're asking of the horse, it's quite difficult to maintain these perfect frames and perfect rhythms like this over periods of time. But she handled that well and got the horse to settle back in again. So she kind of went through a moment where she lost the horse's back just a little bit. Into a better frame there. But you could see there how she kind of flattened for a moment there, once again losing her rhythm. Now this is the serpentine that she's doing here, and what happens here, so this would be an accuracy fault here, is that the circles should be 3 perfect half 20-meter circles in a dressage ring. So we see her second circle has ended up too close to E. So she should have been well beyond E, still making that turn before she came around to the last one. So that ended up being rather the second half of that being quite irregular. Which of course, all of that we see reflected in also the rhythm changes when things get, and then we start, trying to get the job done, and we end up with a little more tension. So we would have to give that quite low marks in terms of accuracy on that one. So here she comes back to the stretch, and of course, once again, I've added these stretches in here because they let us come back and refresh the horse's back again once it gets tense. And she comes back to a good swinging walk there. Nicely through the corner, and begins to develop that working walk. And that's what I'm looking for at this level. I'm not looking for these things to happen instantly. That's why we say develop these things between certain letters, to give you time to not expect the younger, inexperienced horse to be able to snap right to these things at the moment. But really nice working walk here. So once again, we see how throughout the test that she's actually improved. The horse is actually going better now and got to a really swinging walk, staying really nice and soft over her back there. Just a little bit out on that halt, but not bad at all. Notice how nicely the horse stands here, and this is why I put these in to prove this is good schooling for the horses as well. Get a little reward in the ring, because I want these tests to reflect a way of training that is encouraging of the horse and the riders, of course. Now, the one thing she does here is she forgets to run her stirrups up. So she should have drawn her stirrups up and then walking away to be perfect. She should have had the bite, which is the excess rein, in her left hand with the whip, and then the rein in her right hand. So in other words, the rein should have been in both hands across her front there, with the excess of the rein in her left rein as she walked out of the arena. But other than that, that was really a fantastic job. Congratulations, Barb. She was very brave today to get out and try this with us. And I hope I'll see everybody else trying these tests very, very soon.